I know this story consumed Dave when it happened. Was it like maybe almost a year ago now, when Alec Baldwin, the actor, it seemingly accidentally shot and killed the cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. Alec Baldwin's been announced. That case, he may be recharged. Charges were dropped in New Mexico, and now they've decided to seat a grand jury to look at the evidence, because there's been new evidence that's come forth that may prove that Alec Baldwin should face some sort of a criminal consequence because of it.
Yeah, and this happened a couple years ago, Deb.
Was it a couple years ago?
It's been so long. No, I think it surprised me as well. It almost 2 years to the day. My goodness, October 21st, 2021. So yeah, 3 years to the day that this happened. And I've got a few things kind of going in my brain about it, of how it transpired, and should he genuinely be held responsible for her death. Now, I think let's describe and remind you, because it's been a couple years, of what happened and how it played out. And then I think we need to have an important discussion about, should we hold this person responsible for her death?
So what year did you say?
2021.
Oh my goodness. So he was filming an old Western movie. It was called Rust.
Yeah.
They never ended up releasing it or finishing it, right?
You know what? I thought they actually had finished it.
Okay.
I think it still might be released.
So he's on set. He's in character. They're rehearsing a take. He draws a gun. He thought it was loaded with blanks.
Yeah, when they handed the gun to him, he claims they said, "This is a cold gun." And apparently that means it does not have live ammunition in there. A hot gun would be, hey, be careful. This is a real gun with real bullets. But he says that they handed them the gun and said, this is a cold gun.
And here's what he told ABC's George Stephanopoulos about it.
And what's really urgent is the gun wasn't meant to be fired in that angle.
So if you're shooting directly into the camera lens, you're not aiming.
I'm not shooting into the camera lens. I'm shooting just off.
Just off.
Right, in her direction. I'm holding the gun where she told me to hold it, which ended up being aimed right in below her armpit, was what I was told. I don't know. This was a completely incidental shot, an angle that may not have ended up in the film at all. But we kept doing this, and so then I said to her, now in this scene, I'm going to cock the gun. And I said, do you want to see that? And she said, yes. So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
At the moment. The decisive
That was the moment the gun went off, yeah. That was the moment the gun went off.
And then it shoots her and she dies. She dies from that gun going off. Now, Debbie, I've been a photographer. I've been a director, not of movies, but I spent a lot of time behind the camera. And that is something that is very common. You will point the camera at somebody and you'll say, all right, that's just not the right angle. I'm trying to fine tune and tweak just so I have the perfect angle. I might need to raise the camera up a few inches or drop it a few inches, move it to the left, move it to the right. So this is very common. This is very normal on a movie set. Guns on a movie set, extremely common. Handing an actor a gun, that happens all the time.
But you have a question about, like, why would they be reinvestigating the actor?
Right.
You were really wound up about that a little earlier today.
Because they
when we were
already
talking.
dropped the charges. Mm-hmm. They had charges originally. They decided not to pursue them. But now they're going back to the well, it seems.
So we asked Greg Skordas, our KSL legal analyst, to fill us in on why this is going before a grand jury now.
So the new evidence is this, that they've had a gun expert look at the gun. And what happened earlier was they had felt that the gun could accidentally discharge without the trigger being pulled. In other words, somebody just holding it could discharge the gun. And if that's the case, then maybe Alec Baldwin wasn't reckless or careless. But they've now tested the weapon and have found that it does require a trigger pull. So what they're saying is, well, Alec, you don't just draw a gun and pull a trigger towards someone, even if you believe it's not loaded. That could potentially be what's called reckless conduct, and that's why they're investigating him again and opening up the case to a grand jury to see if potentially they could charge him with manslaughter, which is a recklessly causing the death of another person.
And I would argue a little bit saying that it is uncommon for an actor to point a gun at somebody and pull the trigger. That happens all the time. If you've ever seen any war movie, that happens all the time where they point a gun at somebody or directly at the camera, where it is, if there were a real round in there, where it would be absolutely fatal or dangerous at the very least. This is very common in the movie business. I don't know why he's being held responsible.
You had said something to me earlier, Dave, and I want to tee you up for this because I thought it was very poignant. You said sometimes accidents happen, and we want to hold people accountable. We want to make an example of them, but not everybody needs to be criminally held responsible. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, sometimes there is no negligence. It's an honest mistake. The stars lined up poorly and just bad things happened, and there was no intent. And I don't think we understand that. For example, if you're driving on the road and you have given the car in front of you tons of, several seconds lead time, way more than is normal. Mm-hmm. But if they slam on their brakes,
yes,
which happens, and you hit some black ice that you didn't see coming, and you smash into that car, you will be held responsible for following too closely.
Even if you were far away.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you had
not driving for conditions or something
way
like
more
that,
than is normal, than appropriate. Sometimes it was an unfortunate series of events that happens. It's tragic. The result could be catastrophic and terrible. That does not mean that person should be held criminally liable. And I don't love Alec Baldwin. I'm not like his champion or anything. But to pretend that an actor should be a weapons expert on top of everything else they're doing, that is not fair. It's not a fair thing to ask of him. They had somebody on set. They had an armorer, so to speak, that was responsible for handling the weapons, making sure they were safe, that hand the weapons to the actor. Of all the people that are to blame, I just don't know how him being held responsible is the right move.
I also appreciate what you said about sometimes things are just terribly tragic and unfortunate accidents, and there's not intent. But yeah, we want somebody to be held up in a court of law as a criminal.
Yeah,
It's
pay the price.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dave.